Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial on custom hooks in React. In this tutorial we will discuss what custom hooks are and how they differ from regular functions and built-in hooks. Then we will dive into building our own custom hook step by step using the example of a useWindowSize hook that will allow us to get the size of the browser window. So let's get started. So if you have been working with React for a while, you are probably familiar with hooks like useState and useEffect, but have you ever heard of custom hooks? So custom hooks are reusable functions that allows us to extract and reuse stateful logic from our components. This means that we can create simpler and more focused components that are easier to understand and maintain. Now, custom hooks have a naming convention of using the use prefix, as in use my hook. This is because it tells React that the function is a hook and should follow the rules of hooks, such as only being called at the top level of functional component or another custom hook. Custom hooks can use other hooks inside them, such as useState or useEffect. This allows us to build more complex logic on top of built-in React hooks and share that logic across our application. Now we can create custom hooks for any purpose, such as handling form input, managing scroll positions, or fetching data from an API. The key is to identify common patterns in our application and extract that logic into a reusable hook that we can share across our components. Now here are some examples of the custom hooks: use debounce, use network status, use window size, etc. Now, like, how do custom hooks differ from built-in hooks like useState and useEffect? Built-in hooks such as useState and useEffect have a specific purpose and implementation that is designed to handle common tasks in React. Custom hooks, on the other hand, can be created for a variety of purposes depending on the developer's needs. Custom hooks are highly flexible and can be used to extract and reuse stateful logic across multiple components. This means that custom hooks can be created for any purpose, such as handling form input, managing scroll positions, or fetching data from an API. Now, built-in hooks are more widely known and understood by the React community, while custom hooks may require additional explanation or documentation for others to use and understand. Now let's dive into building our own custom hook. So the problem statement is as a React developer, I often find myself needing to know the size of the browser window in order to create responsive designs or implement certain features. However, manually accessing the window object and tracking its size across multiple components can be a headache. Therefore, I need a reusable solution that can extract and update the window size across my application in a simple and efficient way. So now it's time to create a use window size hook that will allow us to get the size of the browser window. So without wasting any time, let's switch to our editor. So I'll go to VS Code and I'll open my terminal, and as I can see, I'll restart my server. So npm run dev to restart my Vite server, and as we can see, it is running on port 5173. Now we are in our app.jsx file, and I'll show browser as well. So I'll go to this Vite and React. Yes, it is working fine. Now going into this, now inside our source directory, I'll create a file useWindowSize.js. Now it's just a function only. So function use window size, its size, and this is a function, and after this I'll export this function. So export default use window size. So after this thing, first of all, I'll create a state So I'll create a state window size and set window size, and I'll initialize it with an object and which has two properties: width, which is going to be undefined, and height, which is also going to be undefined. So after this thing I want to create, sorry, I need to import useState as well. So after this thing I'll create a useEffect hook, and inside this useEffect hook I'll pass a function, and inside this useEffect hook I'll also pass an empty array. Empty array here means that this function is going to run on mount only. So first of all I'll create a function resize handler, and this function is going to be called whenever a window is getting resized. So inside this function what I'll do is, like, I will set the window size to whatever the width and height of the browser is. So I'll do width is window dot inner width and height is window dot inner height. So the inner height property gives us the height of the visible area of the browser window from top of the window to the bottom, and the inner width property gives us the width of visible area of the browser window from the left side of the window to the right. They represent the height and width of the browser viewport, which is visible portion of the web page that the user is currently looking at. So I'll explain this. So this whole black area, so this whole thing is like given by window dot inner height, and this whole thing is given by window dot inner width. So now let's continue writing our code. So after this we will add an event listener on resize event. So window dot add event listener, and we are going to add this event listener or resize event, and we are going to pass this function resize handler. So this function resize handler is going to be called whenever this event resize event occurs. So after this I want to call this function straight away. So like whenever this function is going to be called, this function inside this useEffect is running. So this call will set the state to initial values of the window. Now on cleanup I will remove the event listener. So that's it, we are done with our custom hook. Now just what we have to do over here is just return this window size. So I'll return window size. Now I'll go back to my app.jsx file, and what I'll do is here is const, and I'll pass an empty object here, and use window size, and we are importing this over here. What I generally like to do is I destructure this object, and height and width we are getting back from use window size. So what I will do over here is I'll make an h1 tag and give width is width pixel and height is height pixel. So that's it, we are done with this thing. Now let's switch to our browser. So as we can see, we are getting our width and height from the hook. So what I'll do is, like, I'll go into responsive mode, and now I will change both of these things. And as you can see, like, width and height is changing when I'm changing its dimensions. So yes, our hook is working properly fine. So now what is happening over here is, like, whenever I'm resizing this thing, this handle resize function is getting called, resize handler function is getting called, and that is updating our state. So one more thing, like, why I have initialized the width and height to be undefined. So I have initialized it to prevent server client render mismatch. So when a React component that uses the useWindowSize hook is rendered on the server, the window object doesn't exist because the component is not running in the browser environment. Therefore, if we were to initialize the window size state with some default values, we could end up with incorrect dimensions since we can't access the actual size of browser window on the server. Initializing the window size state with the value undefined allows us to check whether the hook is being executed on client or server. If it is being executed on the server, we can return the undefined value and the dimensions will be calculated correctly once the component is hydrated on the client. So if it is being executed on the client, we can calculate the initial dimensions of the browser window and update the state accordingly. So by initializing the window size state with the value undefined, we ensure that the hook works correctly regardless of whether it is being executed on client or the server. So that's it for today's video on custom hooks in React. I hope you find it useful and informative. So thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you.